Ladies and gentlemen, welcome your faces to a brand new video. Today we are returning with a reaction video for you today where we've got a cracking one. We have got a cracking one where it is the top 10 worst CGI moments that you can't unsee, which is like, oh my Christ. I've watched some movies and I've watched some bad CGI, specifically kind of like a lot of bad CGI within like the Disney stuff, like the last year or so. It's been very like, what the fuck have I just seen? So this one was from 2020, so it's from anything from 2020 backwards probably, so it won't be anything like new in the last like 2 years. So just so you are aware on that. So if you do enjoy this, make sure you give the video a thumbs up, alright, and make sure you watch all the way through. Don't skip ahead to number one. You gotta find out what the other, like, you know, the other 9 movies. What is the worst, like the definitively like the worst, but what's the ultra worst? Because all of these are going to be bad, so we gotta get there. So let's get started.
Well, CGI movie moments you cannot unsee. Number 10, Baywatch, worst fire ever.
Okay.
2017's Baywatch got you into the cinema for one
it.
of 2 reasons. You either wanted to stare at the pretty cast for 2 hours, or you heard that the film was rated R and wanted to see what all the fuss was about. What you definitely didn't expect to see was out-of-this-world CGI effects, which would have made Steven Spielberg proud. And it's a good thing too, because we definitely did not get that in this Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson vehicle. The infamous moment, which stands out as one of the worst uses of CGI in modern movie history, happens during Mitch Buchanan and the gang's daring attempt to rescue some civilians from a burning boat in the middle of the sea. As they get close to the floating blaze, it becomes clear that these flames are 100% fake. Painfully fake. I mean, the fire looks like it was designed on Minecraft. Thankfully, the entire sequence doesn't last much longer than 5 minutes, so fans are free to get back to enjoying the view of the cast soon after. Number 9, Gods of Egypt, Minotaur Attack. After the initial trailers dropped for 2016's Gods of Egypt, it was clear to most that this film wasn't going to be boasting out-of-this-world visual effects. However, the promise of Gerard Butler hamming it up as an Egyptian god would surely be enough to distract us from the outdated CGI on show, right? Wrong. So wrong. One particular instance of truly dreadful CGI came during a scene which involved a bunch of Minotaurs ambushing Brenton Thwaites' Beck, only for Nikolai Coster-Waldau's Horus to pop up and save the day at the last moment. Unfortunately, the nasty Minotaurs on show here look like they've been ripped straight out of an old stop-motion King Kong movie. For a feature which had a $140 million budget to play with, it's quite embarrassing that the end result turned out to be near unwatchable at times due to some of the laziest CGI in recent history. Number 8, Hellboy. That's Ian McShane moment. When Hellboy finally returned to our screens in 2019, fans wandered into the film with a spring in their step. As the first few glimpses of the reboot looked promising. Sadly, what we got in the end was a half-assed attempt to bring Hellboy's world to life, with the majority of the CGI on show being borderline offensive. The disjointed scene where David Harbour's Hellboy fights off some CGI giants definitely sticks out as one of the worst visual offenses in the film. However, that scene looks like a visual masterpiece compared to that Ian McShane moment at the end of the movie. McShane's Trevor Broom had just been killed by Mila Jovovich's Blood Queen, so a pissed off Hellboy decides to finally yank out Excalibur and looks set to bring about the apocalypse, as you do. Then, in a last gasp attempt to appeal to his human side, Alice uses her powers to channel Broom's spirit, who then tells the demonic being that he is better than this. Unfortunately, the feature's relatively small $50 million budget meant that the team weren't able to juggle a deeply realistic Anung Unrama and convincing second coming of Broom at the same time. So we just got this weird head on convincing second coming of Broom.
That looks so bad. So like, I'd imagine like his little head like pop through a green screen and kind of just going, hello.
At the same time. So we just got this weird head on top of an animated umbilical cord instead.
That looks
Number
so
7,
bad.
Gemini Man, young Will Smith. When your entire marketing campaign focuses on the fact that a well-known acting superstar would be fighting a younger version of themselves in your movie, you have to stick the landing on that all-important de-aging job. Unfortunately, Gemini Man wasn't able to do just that with their cloned version of Will Smith in the 2019 action thriller. There were moments when the effect worked a treat, and audiences were allowed to fully invest in the idea of Smith's character, Henry Brogan, genuinely being faced with the prospect of fighting off a quicker, stronger version of himself. However, at too many points in the story, we were left wincing at just how jarring the finished CGI was in this paint-by-numbers action flick. Yet by far the clunkiest piece of CGI in the big-budget flop was the final scene involving Brogan's clone being visited by the original Brogan at college. Too many Brogans. Here, the clone looks like he's been pasted in from a cutscene in a video game.
His face looks really
focused on delivering next-level visual effects ultimately ends on a de-aging duff note. Number 6, Cats. Pretty much
I've heard so much about this film. I want to watch it just because it's so bad. And, generally, I want to see this movie because from what I've heard, it's supposed to be shambolically bad.
All of the talk coming into Tom Hooper's cinematic take on Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats centered.
It's like to the point, like I just remembering now, like when this film came out, like there was like still parts, like you can still see people's like fingers, their feet, and like stuff like not like properly finished, like CGI. It was like all the CGI wasn't finished. It was like 80% done, and like there were a lot of like obvious things like still left in the movie. It's kind of like the Game of Thrones, like the Starbucks moment in the last season, when it's on one of the episodes. That's basically like this, like a lot of unfinished stuff and like silly stuff fell through the cracks. It's like, stupid.
Around the director's use of groundbreaking visual effects to bring his titular felines to life. Yet, when the first trailers hit the internet for this visual furball, fans all around the world were left feeling slightly disturbed or even concerned about what had been conjured up by the film's visual effects team. Actors such as Serene McKellen and Dame Judi Dench had been morphed into cartrocities before our very eyes. But we were still a few months away from the film's release date. However, they could not improve the visuals in time. Instead, they rushed the feature into cinemas and were forced to re-release another version of the film at a later date, to cover up some CGI blunders such as Dench's wedding ring being very much visible. Sadly, even the re-release couldn't mask the odd decision to put noses on inconsistently sized, digitally altered cat/human hybrids. And so much of the film just ended up feeling like one big acid trip. Number 5, Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, Fake Gravestones. Coming into the third installment of the Terminator franchise, fans were pretty much convinced that the series could do no wrong. The original James Cameron flick boasted some of the best practical effects of its time, and Judgment Day also held its own in terms of its impressive visuals. Rise of the Machines did its best to keep pace with its predecessors in 2003, but there were a few moments where the effects stuck out like a sore mechanical thumb, the worst of which goes down in a cemetery, when Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator is attempting to flee the scene with John Connor in a coffin. After safely shoving said coffin into the backseat of a hearse, the pair pick up Kate Brewster just as she's about to be blown to bits by the evil
I've only ever seen this film once.
But not before Arnie blasts the nasty robot with a rocket launcher straight into one of the worst digitally rendered objects in cinema history, an ill-fated gravestone. Brewster is saved and the three manage to get away from the scene. However, the fans in the cinema could not get away from the fact that they just witnessed some absolutely rotten CGI in a near $200 million blockbuster. Number 4, Venom: Final Battle. Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock morphing into the hulking symbiote was a visual treat at times in 2018's Venom, and the scene where he completely massacred a SWAT team was a particular highlight of the Spider-Verse spin-off. However, all that good work was very nearly overshadowed by a few cringeworthy CGI moments in the climactic final battle between Venom and Riot and Eddie Brock and Carlton Drake. As the enemies tear chunks out of each other, both symbiotes half split away from their hosts. In this moment, Venom and Riot are seen trying to get the better of one another, while Drake and Brock continue to wrestle for dominance. Yet it was painfully obvious that a cartoonish Hardy and Riz Ahmed had been digitally placed into that scene. If that terrible CGI beat wasn't bad enough, when time slows down as Riot slowly engulfs Brock and Venom, the flick quickly starts to enter B-movie visual territory, which isn't exactly what you want from a film which cost over $100 million to make. Number 3, Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales, Shark Attack. There was a time when the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise was home to some of the most convincing visual effects in modern cinema. However, here we are off the back of the most recent outing for Johnny Depp's Captain Jack Sparrow in 2017's Dead Men Tell No Tales, and it looks as though the CGI wheels have completely fallen off this once visually stunning world. Depp's de-aging in the flick wasn't actually half bad, but that's about as good as it got for the fifth Pirates film's visuals. The worst culprit came during a scene where Jack and Brenton Braithwaite's Henry Turner were being chased by ghost sharks. Yep, they're a thing
Ghost
now.
sharks.
Looking, ironically, like the sort of unpleasing visual effect you'd find in an immersive theme park ride, the moment where one of the sharks jumps out of the water and attempts to munch the two main characters felt about as believable as the thought of a decent fifth Pirates film did on paper. Number 2, The Predator. Predadogs. Though many felt that the most soul-destroying part of Shane Black's The Predator was the film's decision to make the big evil a badly animated Ultimate Predator, I see your super CGI'd 11-foot-tall monstrosity and raise you a pair of god-awful Predadogs. These two just looked positively terrible, and their appearance only got worse during a scene which involved the Abominations trying to turn Jacob Tremblay's Rory McKenna into Predator chum. Clearly trying to cover up just how much of a visual mess these alien canines had become, most of the action involving them took place at night. However, even that couldn't stop one of the dogs looking like a creature out of an early installment of the Doom franchise when it was swatted away by an oncoming vehicle. Things went from bad to worse when one of the dogs decided to chase down Boyd Holbrook's Quinn McKenna, only to be turned into a deeply unsatisfying gloopy green disaster in midair thanks to a grenade being pumped down its throat by McKenna. Had Black decided to spend a little bit more time making sure those CGI characters didn't resemble entities from an early 2000s video game, he could have at least produced a Predator film that bloody looked the part. Number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Ego's Expansion. When the first Guardians of the Galaxy film burst onto the scene in 2014, it was universally praised for its mix of perfectly crafted humor and deeply flawed characters.
Like I said it earlier at the start of this video, Disney's CGI has been very wobbly for a while. Like, if you watch some of their, like Thor, Love and Thunder, a bit wobbly in that, and, like, a few other stuff they've done, like the TV shows and that, like, they've got big budgets, and, like, Disney are not, it's not like they're not making money. I'm not surprised Disney's up there at the same time, but Guardians,
who you could fully relate to. Even the talking tree. Yeah, one aspect of that first film, which was a little overlooked, was just how stunning some of the visual effects were. So that's why it was so weird to see such a blatantly awful piece of CGI wedged into the finale of the 2017 sequel. As Ego's seedlings began to terraform and his expansion started to become a reality, MCU fans in cinemas all over the planet couldn't help but wonder why his terrifying plan looked an awful lot like a blue version of flubber-eating cities. Thankfully, the epic battle between Peter Quill and his father, coupled with Yondu's heartbreaking sacrifice, helped cover up this big old blue mess. But for a moment there, it definitely looked like James Gunn had completely crapped the CGI bed in the final moments of Volume 2. And that's our list. Know of any other terrible CGI moments that you cannot unsee? Then feel free to...
I can definitely agree with Disney, though. Disney's CGI has been very wobbly for a few years, and it's kind of like going downhill, it is. So definitely it's quite, if you do watch, like, rewatch the Disney stuff, like the TV shows or anything like that, just keep an eye out for the CGI, because it is a bit wobbly. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Quite an interesting list. If you agree with it, let us know in the comments down below. Or if you watched a movie, right, name us a movie which is the worst CGI you have ever seen, all right? Because it's a hard one to think of, all right? It's a hard one to think of, but for me, there's a film called Death on the Nile, and that's probably like the worst CGI I've seen, because basically it's a boat on a river and stuff like that, and absolutely awful. It is on Disney Plus if you do want to watch it. It's called Death on the Nile. Quite a good plot, like mystery movie, but it's just, it's not good. It's not good. The CGI in it. So that's probably the worst one I've watched in quite a while. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy it, make sure you leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all very soon with another reaction video. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.